Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing the Booktube SFF Babbles topic for April 1st through 8th, which is Underhyped SFF. So I'm going to tell you about 5 books that I loved that I just don't hear as many people talking about as I think they deserve. The first is Semiosis by Sue Burke. This is a science fiction novel that follows a group of colonists who leave Earth and go to a new planet, where it follows different people over different generations and how they adapt to that planet, and in particular, how they interact with the flora that exists on the planet already, which is quite intelligent actually. So this book has so much about culture, about evolution of different beings, about evolution of the way that we see ourselves, the way that we interact, how to create a new culture. It has a lot to do with how we interact with other species, the language that we use. There's so many fascinating themes and topics and ideas that this book covers that it just was so wonderful. I really loved reading this. Maybe the reason why this isn't talked about as much is because this is one of those books that's all about the ideas, and it's not so much about a specific character or a specific plot. So you get lots of different characters, and it's really more about the overview and about following that evolution and those themes. So maybe that's why it doesn't get as much love as it should, but I really adored it. Next is Jackalope Wives and Other Stories by Kingfisher. This is a collection of short speculative fiction, fantasy type stories that are just so wonderful. So these short stories are about lots of women, and in particular a lot of kind of witchy type women or magical women. Some of them good, some of them not so good, and lots of them middle-aged or old. I loved that. I really enjoy stories that are about middle-aged or old women, as well as about like young girls as well. But I love that so many of these stories, it's all about that kind of internal power that these women have. There's almost no romance in any of these stories, and it's just all about the women and their magic, and I loved that. So I'm not sure why this doesn't get quite the hype that it should. I think part of it is just that not as many people are into short stories as into novels, and perhaps also because it focuses on older women, that maybe that doesn't appeal to as broad of a demographic. But gosh, I loved these stories, and they have such humor and such whimsy. I just really loved them. Next is Monteverde by Lola Robles, translated by Schimel. So this is a very slim little novella that follows an interstellar linguist. So it's a science fiction where there is a linguist who goes to a planet that has been kind of isolated from the rest of the galaxy, and she is trying to learn the language of the people there, and in that process learns a lot about culture and about the way that our language expresses our culture, and it's just got some really fascinating themes that kind of look at the importance of those things, as well as looks at what it's like to be an outsider looking and learning about people and what kind of assumptions you make. I absolutely loved this. It was super short, so good. It's a translated work, which is great, but also perhaps one of the reasons why it's just not as well known. I never would have heard about this except that Rachel at Kalanadi, who I will link below, had talked about this as one of her favorite books that featured linguistics in SFF. And it really is such a joy to read. So if you can get your hands on a copy, I really highly recommend it. Next is The Dream Quest of Velitt by Kitch Johnson. So this is a feminist take on a Lovecraftian story. And although I haven't read any Lovecraft, this story I quite liked. It was very feminist, and again, it featured an older female protagonist, and the story was all about her strength and about her journey. It's in this kind of Lovecraftian universe, and she lives in this Lovecraftian place, and she has to go on a journey, and it's just so cool, the atmosphere of it, her strength as she goes on this journey. There's a cat. I don't know, it was very something I could just sink into, something that was both beautiful and eerie, but also comforting. I just really loved this story, and I hear almost nobody else talking about it, so I'm not sure why, other than perhaps it was not a big release, or perhaps because it's a novella, again featuring older women. I'm not super sure, but I really loved this story. And lastly is A Taste of Honey by Ashante Wilson. This is another novella, and it is so sweet. It takes place in this sort of fantastical version of almost like Roman times. And it follows a boy, a teenager, who is just coming into adulthood, and he is facing some difficult choices. He has a family that is very powerful and wants him to marry into the royal family to kind of perpetuate their power. But he ends up meeting and falling in love with a soldier, somebody who is basically from this fantasy world equivalent of Rome. It sounds like maybe this takes place in a fantasy equivalent of Africa. And this is, 2,000 years ago type of style. And he faces a lot of difficult choices because his gay relationship is not accepted in his own community. And the soldier wants him to go away, to come back to his home so that they can be together. But the boy has to decide if he should do that, or if he should fulfill his obligations to his family, fulfill his role in society. And these are very tough choices. There's also quite a bit of magic in this story, and it's lovely and it's beautiful, and it sort of both warms and rips out my heart. It's just lovely. I really like love stories. I like romances, and this one just had such a great fantastical element to it. This is published by Tor.com, so I'm not positive why it doesn't have as much hype as I think it should. Maybe because it's a romance? I'm not super sure, but if you like at all romances and sweet stories, I really loved this one, and I do recommend it. Okay, so those are 5 of the books that I have loved in the past couple of years that I think are underhyped. If you guys have read any of the books that I mentioned, please let me know what you think down below, or if you have any ideas as to why they don't get more press. Also, if you have any books that you think are underhyped, I'd love to hear what they are, so go ahead and leave me a comment down below.